There is historical evidence to document the pilchard industry in the southwest coast of Ireland from Ardmore, County Waterford, to Ballinskelligs in County Kerry, from approximately 1570 to about 1750. This was an important industry with Baltimore, Dunmanus, Schull, Sherkin, Kinsale, Bantry, Whiddy Island as centres, together with outlying curing station called Pallices, of which there were significant numbers along the southern coast. Working of seinboats. Fish was caught by means of the seine net, which together with the curing at the fish palaces had been introduced by English settlers in the period. Two boats, the seinboat and the so-called follower, were used. The seinboat, a large boat pulled by perhaps a dozen or more oars, carried the net, which was often 300 to 400 yards long. An experienced fisherman acted as a steward by directing fishing operations from suitable points of vantage. From high land, the steward could see the shoals of pilchards clearly, and he directed the skipper of the seinboat, by suitable signs, to the location of a likely shoal. On a given signal, the net was shot around the shoal by the seinboat, and in the meantime, the free end of the net was picked up by the follower, with a crew of perhaps 5 or 6, and the two ends of the net were brought together. Weighted pieces of timber were placed to prevent the fish from escaping. The escaping footrobes of the net were gradually drawn up until the fish were completely enclosed, and by means of baskets the fish were transferred from the net to the boat, and fishing continued until no more fish could be managed, or if catches were poor. The pilchards were preserved with salt in the Pallices, or occasionally smoked. Whiddy Island was a major centre of the industry, and Edward Davenant and his partner John Snelling were dominant players, having a 31-year lease from 1608, possibly from Owen O'Sullivan or his widow of Downboy. There is a reference to a consignment of pilchards taken 1623 in an English ship from Bantry to a French port in the Admiralty Court Records. In London, decline of fishery. Bishop Dives Downs, visiting Bantry in 1699, referred to a lack of pilchards. In an article by the Archbishop of Dublin in the 1726 edition of Gerard Boat's A Natural History of Ireland, it was stated that prior to 1688 there was good fishing of pilchards in the south coast, but since the fight in Bantry Bay the pilchards have not been seen on the coast. There is, however, reference in 1735 by Mr. Jenkins, giving evidence before a commission of the State of Irish Fisheries. He had seen the books of Mr. Mead, who was involved in the fisheries in Bantry Bay from 1730 to 1745, and exported enormous quantities of pilchards. Smith further says that before there were many creeks around Bantry, there were several fish palaces for saving, preserving and salting pilchards, which were sent to Spain, Portugal and Italy. He says that the fishery generally began around St. James's Day, the first day of July, and for the first 3 months they were large, fat and full of oil, and were saved with difficulty, being darker and worse colored than those taken in the winter months, and less prized in foreign markets. Notwithstanding they were afforded more profit, having a much greater quantity of oil. The fishery held until the end of the year 600 barrels of these fish, having been enclosed together in one net. When the pilchards were cured they were known as fumados. The fishery would have given rights to great employment for coopers, carpenters, clerks in the overall area. This is substantiated by the reference in Frank O'Mahony's book, Losses Sustained by William Hull, arising from the raid on his fishery by natives, of Kilcroane in 1641. James Fontaine said that you couldn't enter the pilchard industry unless you had a large farm with many tenants on it, obliged to fish for you. In Kenmare, statistical returns indicated that the value of the fishery in 1683 quarters was only 10% of that of the mid-1630.